Todd, thanks for joining us. What were some of the other items not in your report that we just saw?
Well, probably the biggest chunk that I didn't report on yet is funding, $613 million in funding that goes under the category of rights and self-determination. As I mentioned before, $101.5 million is going to explore reconstructing First Nations. But there's also $189 million over 5 years to strengthen a new fiscal relationship with First Nations institutions and community capacity. There's also another $189 million to be spent next year to collaborate with self-governing Indigenous governments on this new fiscal relationship. Now, I imagine this is to build capacity to get First Nations out of third-party management, for example, and to prepare a number of First Nations to get longer-term funding, like the promise of 10-year funding blocks, for example.
Todd, was there anything in the budget specifically for the Métis?
Again, as I mentioned in my earlier report, existing funding for housing and job training is now being targeted specifically for Métis and for Inuit as well. Although there were no health dollars specifically for Métis, $6 million over 5 years is there to support the Métis Nation in gathering health data and develop a health strategy. That means probably in the future, Métis-specific dollars for health will flow their way once this strategy is done. Also next year, the Métis will be getting $10 million for post-secondary education.
Todd, anything else of interest in the budget that you saw from being in lockup all day?
Well, being in lockup all day, I also saw that the Gord Downey and Cheney Wenjack Fund, which supports activities aimed at reconciliation, will get $5 million in federal dollars next year. There will also be nearly $24 million spent over 5 years to integrate Indigenous views, history, and heritage in Canada's national parks. And $47.5 million will go to Indigenous sports over the next 5 years.
Todd, appreciate you taking the time to fill us in on some of the details in the budget today.
No problem, Dennis.